The Japanese Grand Prix weekend was one of mixed conditions and limited preparation time. The wet qualifying gave us a grid where all the championship contenders were mired in the middle of the pack and set up an exciting race between them. So let's take a look at the 5 things we learned from the Japanese Grand Prix. Suzuki Suffer. Suzuki had what could only be described as a pretty torrid weekend. Alex Rins had an amazing start, but from his lowly grid position of 18th, climbing up to 12th for a short amount of time. However, this charge ended seemingly as quickly as it started, as Alex fell back out of the points to 20th and eventually pulled up into the pits thanks to a bike issue of some kind. The final home race for Suzuki didn't go well for the rider filling in for Joan Mir either. Takuya Tsuda's bike decided to give us a visual representation of the Hamamatsu's team season since they announced their leaving by catching on fire in a spectacular fashion. It was a real shame to see Suzuki's last home race end in this manner, with neither of their bikes getting across the finish line, particularly given that Motegi has been a circuit where they have achieved some success in the past. Marquez Motegi return. Mark had a great qualifying as he took pole in the wet 1,071 days after his last pole, also at Motegi. The race didn't go exactly as planned, since Marquez's last minute change to the soft tyre in the rear suggested that he wanted to attempt a runner at the front and try and secure the win. It didn't quite work out, but Marquez did do a great job to keep his tyre working after he lost places in the initial stages, making them up later in the race. Whilst the likes of Martin struggled on their harder compound tyres, Mark had saved enough of his and ended up finishing in an impressive 4th position, particularly considering that the Honda still isn't the greatest bike and Mark is still struggling with his right shoulder. Viva Miller. From the start of FP1, Jack Miller looked fast, and that certainly flowed into the race. Qualifying may not have gone exactly how Jack would have wanted it to, but he did an amazing job despite his 3rd row start, quickly gaining places in the opening lap. It looked like an easy win from the Australian from the second that he got into the lead, using his speed to pull a gap and dominating the race, finishing 3.5 seconds up the road from 2nd place. It was certainly great to see the Aussie back on the top step of the podium, particularly in such a dominant display. It might end up being the last win that he achieves for Ducati, although I'm sure we are all hoping that he takes another one at Phillip Island. Viva Miller! Binder Magic. An early jump thanks to an amazing start from Brad Binder's first ever front row in MotoGP left him in the lead of the Japanese Grand Prix in the early stages of the race. Brad wouldn't manage to hold onto the lead for long and ended up in 3rd place by the end of lap 2 thanks to a lack of experience with the hard tyre. After using some time to settle in, Brad pushed past his teammate and Jorge Martin to secure an excellent 2nd, topping off an amazing weekend. KTM do seem to have found something, as Oliveira found 5th at the line. Jack Miller, who of course won, will probably be happy to see the KTM doing as well as they have been in the last 2 rounds, with his teammate for next year showing that the bike could become a regular podium competitor in the near future. Title turns again. Once again, the championship takes a tight turn. A mechanical issue for Aleix Espargaro led him to have to come in and swap bikes at the end of the warm-up lap. The fault, which was caused by the bike being stuck in an eco-fuel saving mode designed to be only used for the sighting lap, could be what ruins the Spaniard's chances at the title. Thanks to the mechanical failure, Aleix finds himself 25 points or a full race win behind the title lead. It's particularly disappointing for Aleix as he just missed out on points and had the best starting position out of all of his title competitors. A podium may have been on the cards today, making the fact that mechanical gremlins struck now of all times even more brutal for Aleix. Meanwhile, just as Bagnaia started to gain pace and look capable of getting Quartararo, he binned it once again, losing 8 points to Fabio in the title race. It's not as bad as it could have been for Bagnaia, but it's certainly a disappointing way to finish the weekend. After the crash of last week, the 8th place that Quartararo achieved today will feel like a win, as he increases his points buffer to all of his championship rivals. This title is certainly a dramatic one, and it's impossible to guess who may come out on top, but Quartararo's consistency is certainly the ace up the Frenchman's sleeve. Rider of the weekend. I tend to try to find someone aside from the winner to give the Rider of the Weekend award to, but after the race that Jack Miller ran this weekend, he had to be given the award. The Australian rode what was probably his best ever race, and it was great to see. To quote Jack in the post-race interviews,
"I can ride a motorcycle sometimes."
And he certainly showed it this weekend. I hope we see more like this in the upcoming rounds, particularly in Australia. Struggle of the weekend. Johann Zarco is my struggle of the weekend. The Frenchman fell down the order after qualifying an impressive second. With his experience at this track and a good grid position, I expected more from Zarco, but he clearly struggled from the start and finished in a lowly and unimpressive, by comparison to his teammate, 11th place. I hope that we can see a little bit more of a turnaround in the upcoming races where Zarco should have more experience than the rest of the grid. That's 5 things we learned from the Japanese Grand Prix. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to ring the bell icon to stay up to date with all my future MotoGP videos. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.